I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with the feeder flash and the cattle market summary combined. Going to do it all in one this week because I really want to share with all my listeners everything that I learned on a trip over the weekend to Canada. And oh Canada, did we have a good time at the Livestock Markets Association of Canada annual convention. And in conjunction with that, they had the Canadian Livestock Auctioneer Championship for 2018. I was asked to come up there by Rick Wright, the Executive Administrator of LMAC, and really was surprised because I didn't realize that people were watching the feeder flash up in Canada, but I found out that a lot of people watched up there. In fact, those people north of the border are probably more well versed on what the American cattle market is than most of the people in the United States. And there are very few of us that know much at all about their Canadian cattle market. But also would like to mention Rob Bergevin, the president there from the Calgary area there, and he's got a market out there. He's the president of LMAC. Really nice guy, but everybody I met at this event was just as nice as they could be. I tell you what, sincerely, it was one of the best industry events I've ever went to in my life, and I've been to a ton of them over the last 20-some years. Just really genuine people, very engaging to talk to. Most all of them very active in the market, in the cattle business, wanting to do the right thing. Just worried about their future. They're no different than most of our hardy cattle people. They just want to make a living. I guarantee you that there are no fair weather cattle farmers in Canada because their weather's horseshit most of the year. So there's definitely nobody like that. But at this convention they had no stuffy suits, no big feeling corporates, nothing like that. Just a whole bunch of really good cattle people, auction market owners, order buyers, producers, and I think if anybody gets a chance to go to that, they should. But they had the auctioneer contest at Whitewood Livestock Sales. This is on the eastern side of Saskatchewan. We had the convention in Moosomin, Saskatchewan. And that sale, Whitewood Livestock Sales, is in a little town of Whitewood that's about 30 minutes or so from there. And the Parks family, Gene Parks and his son Rhett, they got a really nice market there and did as good a job at hosting an auctioneer contest as I've seen, and I've been to a lot of them. And it was just flawless. They sold the cattle on in weights, but they had a pencil shrink on them. And when the cattle just come in, all the information was already up on the scoreboard. Had a lot of good buyers there. The order buyers supported the market. They never happened to wait on a bid or back up. Just like most of your auctioneer contest sales, the market was really good. And the winner ended up being Albert Carroll from Ontario, way out in Ontario there, but a good young auctioneer there. But they had a lot of good auctioneers there and could compete anywhere. I do want to give you some market because I can't go to a sale barn without reporting the market, so I had to report the market here, and I want to show you kind of what stuff is bringing. They had a ring full of these big Charolais steers here, weighed 1,017 pounds, bring 161 1/4 Canadian. 78% exchange rate there, brings it back to 125.75 US base, and was sitting there visiting with a guy that exports cattle and sends cattle down into the States, and he said was what those cattle were bringing there in the ring, those cattle with the expenses of getting them through the export and getting them delivered down in the northern part of the 5-area feeding region would be 134.80 on some steers weighing 1,017 pounds. They've got good facilities there for exporting cattle. You bring the cattle in. If if the cattle that are to go, and you look at these cattle here that I showed, those are about 3,000 cattle waiting to be processed, and they have to have a Canadian brand before they can go on south. But just the way that they handle cattle, it's cowboy-like. They don't holler and scream at them. They move cattle around real nice and easy. The cattle are mostly docile, and I'm not talking about shut up in a barn docile, but they're just, they bred a lot of the wild out of them. Probably the biggest difference between the way they do things up in Canada and the way things are done down here. Canada is not completely sold out on the black-hided deal. They do like black-hided cattle, but you see a lot more really good red cattle, Charolais cross cattle, cattle like that. They don't shy away from the fact that they like to make cattle big, and we like to make cattle big now too, and you got to have a frame to stack that on. And they've got a lot of those kind of cattle up there. But another thing that you see in Canada is that they are miles and miles ahead of us on traceability. We thought BSE was bad down here. They're still having nightmares about BSE up there, and they have embraced traceability a lot more than we have. And we did have several of the progressive producers and the progressive market drivers that were really on traceability around here until we heard that it was going to be voluntary, and then everybody just quit. Well, they're still driving on it, and the good thing is if and when we do have another outbreak, and I will imagine it'll probably be foot and mouth, because the governments are starting to get lax on that, and they're letting their guard down, and that'll be a complete disaster if we have a foot and mouth outbreak. But if and when we do have another bad outbreak, we're probably going to be able to go to Canada and have them show us how they've got along on this traceability deal, because they are so far out in front of us, you can't believe it. Another thing that they've already taken care of is the ELD on the trucks for livestock haulers. They've got the livestock haulers exempt from that. We keep kicking the can down the street. And they were some of the guys I talked to were a little bit surprised to hear about that. You know, they got animal welfare people there, probably more so than we do here. That's basically all they had to do, was get the animal welfare people with them, saying, "Do you think we're going to pull over on the side of the road with all these cattle sitting in there? You know, that's cruel." And they just waived it. And here we are, just you know, putting it off 3-6 months at a time. We need to get the same thing done. Get that ELD deal just away from your livestock haulers. But look at some more markets there at Whitewood Livestock Sales in Whitewood, Saskatchewan. Look at these red heifers here. I don't believe they sold for replacements, although probably half or more of them were good enough to keep back. But 30 head of these big red heifers weighed 824 pounds, bring back 164 Canadian, which is about $128 US, and said they would deliver, like I said on the other bunch of cattle, after processing fees and freight, at about $137.50 in the northern 5 areas. They also had a lot of green, thin, good calves, long time weaned calves, hard wintered calves. Of course, everything they got up there is hard wintered, but those thin black steers, I saw some of those sell, weighing just over 5, bringing about $245 there by the hundred, which is just over $190 US, which is nothing to sneeze at. But they've got a good market up there. You know, I think we should. I've always thought that cool deal is not a good deal that we really need to push. The country of origin labeling. You know, the reason so many people got behind cool when they first started talking about it is they didn't want ground beef from water buffaloes filling up all of our hamburger joints. Well, cool never did take care of that. Cool did not even apply to restaurant beef and meats, and so it was just in the meat counter in the supermarket, and we weren't getting much of that kind of stuff there anyway. But you know, that cool deal, all it really did was piss off our closest neighbors and best customers. And we found out that the American housewife really didn't care to read the fine print on those labels, and it didn't change anything. We got done with it, so we probably just need to move on and quit worrying about kicking a cool dead horse. But really just wanted to say I appreciate everybody that I met there. Didn't know a soul in the entire country when I went up there Thursday, and probably got 8 or 10 people that I'd really call good friends now just over the weekend. But now let's talk about our market here. Look at the board for last week. June live cattle futures. Monday was down 87. Tuesday was up $1.12. Wednesday down 62. Thursday up $1.85. And Friday up a dime to end the week with June live cattle at 107.62. That was actually $1.57 higher for the week. Now your August spot, or your August, excuse me, June's a spot, but your August next month out did not have a drive. It ended at 104.42, down 65 cents. But that June, when it gets a chance, it's going to try to scrape a little bit off that basis on the board, and the Packers are going to take care of moving the cash market down so that it makes sure that it meets here by the time it matures. But feeder cattle, August contract, Monday down 262. Tuesday up 2 cents, Wednesday down $1.02, Thursday up $1.25, and Friday down a nickel to end the week with August feeder cattle at 143.90, down 242 for the week. You remember back here several weeks ago when your August feeder cattle board was up in the upper 150s, and now we're down here under 144. Now look at your May spot feeder cattle. 138.42, down 198 for the week. But your fat cattle trade early in the week, we talked about it. It's kind of like the last couple of weeks. You see some prices coming through, but most of them are for 2 to 4 week delivery. A lot of late May cattle sold early in the week, and through Thursday they'd only sold 31,500 head in the 5-area feeding region, mostly from 117 to 122 live and from 188 to 195 dressed. But then on Friday things finally broke loose. We saw a little bit of trade Friday morning at 122 in the Southern Plains, and then it kind of quieted down a little bit, and we thought maybe that some of the guys would hold on and wouldn't trade that way. But then Friday afternoon the rest of them flooded out, and basically 122 was the established market everywhere in all 5 areas. So that'd be $3 to mostly $4 lower. You know, we've known that the Packers will take it back in hunks. You know, we fight tooth and nail to get $1 here and $1 there going up, although we did have some good weeks over the past few months. But when they take it back, they'll take it back in hunks. And this was just the fringe of this wall of cattle they've been talking about. And I don't know if the wall was ever there, but we've short-term contracted so many cattle now for late May that we've built our own wall. And look at Northern Plains, did sell some dress cattle. They had 122 also, but they also sold some dress cattle, mostly at 193, but not a lot of dress trade. But that would have been about $2 lower. Box beef cutout values were higher, but are starting to slow down a little bit. It will be interesting to see how much higher they do get as we start to get into more of these grilling holidays, and we're past Mother's Day now, and so that may ease back, and we might not see a whole lot more growth in that box beef value. But choice cutouts ended the week, or actually the average trade for last week was $230.61. That was up $3.81. So your select average trade for last week was $209.58, up $1.90. You've got a choice select spread now just over $21, which is typical when we get into grilling season, but a fairly good movement in sales through last week, and we're not having any trouble selling this meat. You know, the market jostles around a little bit, but still good consumer demand, and pretty good exports too for our beef, and that is not a problem, but we do have a supply problem of cattle. But your slaughter for last week, 645,000, a little bit disappointing. We were hoping to break 650, but that's only 5,000 head, but Saturday wasn't quite as big as we were hoping it was going to be. But that 645,000 was off just 2,000 from the previous week, but up 26,000 compared to the same week a year ago. And these packers, they've got a lot of meat sold out front. They're wanting to keep things ginning. They want to keep these change speeds going fast. They would like to move the weekly kill over 650,000, but we haven't done that in several years. And so it'll be interesting to see if they're able to push it up that high and kind of push these plants there to their limit. And you know, we've always got problems with employees and keeping a prod under that, but that will do nothing but help us get out of these problems we've got coming. And look at the feeder cattle market for last week. Your real-time index on Beef Market Central ended the week at 136.65. That was actually down just 34 cents compared to the end of the previous week, but the market did move around a little bit, and your actual cash market and your auction sales was weak to $4 lower, and it was sure $4 lower there on some of your bigger Thursday sales. But people are planting corn like crazy. You know, plumb up into Canada, saw a lot of corn planters moving, but a lot in North Dakota and just all over the Midwest. But let me tell you, the Midwest, especially the lower Midwest, parts of Missouri, southern Iowa, and places like that, they have not had near enough moisture. They didn't get a whole lot of the deep snow like they did farther up in the northern plains and the upper Midwest. Haven't had a lot of rain this spring. Don't have a lot of deep soil moisture. They rely on pond water for the cattle that they have, and they are moving a lot of cows. Especially in northern Missouri, we're seeing cow receipts increase double, just like we did up in North Dakota, you know, last summer when they had that horrible drought. But they're out of hay, and they don't have any water for the cattle to drink, and they're busy trying to plant corn, and the only thing they can do is load cows up and haul them to the sale, and they're doing it. And I think a lot of these things are going to help us get back to some really good prices of calves and on the calf crop coming up. Maybe not this next calf crop, but over the next 3 or 4 years, because we have continued to thin out the cow herd in a lot of different places. But let's look at a kind of a conservative market on some yearling steers in Fort Scott, Kansas on Saturday. That's our biggest, best Saturday sale that we have on Cattle Market Central. But on Saturday, they sold a load of 874 pound steers at 130.5. That's your feeder flash for the weekend.